Good evening and welcome to our last night of Driver's Ed, at least content-wise. So we'll wait for people to sign in and we'll get things started. So we'll wait just a few minutes. Make sure that you sign in on YouTube. There we go. Everybody's jumping in now. That's good. Make sure that you have your state manual tonight, because we're going to take a look at a few things. I am going to have a textbook collecting, so if you're scheduled to drive tomorrow or Friday or Saturday, please bring a textbook. I need that because, and you need it to, if you have already finished, I think there's only really one of you that has finished, but I need the textbook. And we're going to have to try to make arrangements. So I'll text you and let you know how you can get it to me so I can get you the paperwork too. We're kind of taking a look at the last few subjects that we really haven't talked much about. And they were mentioned in the manual. Not a whole great deal on what's going on. So Section 10 in the manual, driving emergencies, is what we're going to start with. And I don't know if this is going to work or not. I'm going to try to pull this up. Your worksheet, and only a few people have actually sent it in to me. But I'm going to pull it up here, and I'm going to see if I can get it. Let me move these over a little bit. Trying to find where I put the copy. I know what I gotta do. I gotta move this. Okay, let's take a look at this. This is what I sent you. This is what you should have found. At least the back one. This is the one that most people had a difficult time with, and we talked about a cloverleaf and being on the highway. So I wanted to explain a few things. Now with GPS, when we plug in our destination, it's going to basically tell us what exit we're going. Now, remember we talked about last night, north-south, opposite, east-west, opposite. So when you take a look at the road that you're on, you'll be going in one direction. When you start to change, the opposite. So if you're heading south, you're going to be given an option to go east-west. If you're heading east-west, you're going to have an option to the next intersecting road to go north-south. So this worksheet basically was trying to take you like on MapQuest and how you would go from point to point to point. So I'm going to go over it really, really quick. I don't know if I can actually get it any bigger than this. That's probably about as big as it's going to get. So let me explain. Question number 1, to travel east, you would turn at point B. Okay? You would enter the expressway at point D. Your acceleration point will be W. And I've got a little hand or a pointer. I don't even know. Let me see if this will come up. Oh, here we go. So hopefully you can see what's on the screen here with I've got a little hand. So question 4, to travel west on the expressway, you would go up to M, and then you would basically, question number 5, your 5 would be your acceleration lane will be point O. Now, when you go down below where it says 6, if you plan to go north, but you're already on the expressway, so you're up above that black strip, you would exit at point U. You would enter the north-south street at point, Q is what was over here. So O is up here. Okay, if you plan to go south, your deceleration lane will be Q, and 9, you're enter the ramp at P. You would enter the north-south street at L, and then if you live near the Cloverleaf, you would turn at A. So those would be the corresponding places that you'd get on and off the highway with. So it was a little bit confusing, but I did want to give you a chance to take a look at how getting to a traffic circle or a clover leaf or being on the highway would be just a little bit challenging. Let's get right into tonight, driving emergencies. I always look at talking about driving emergencies like first aid. All right, echo. I see. Every time I switch from my first slide to my first PowerPoint presentation, we always go echo. So hopefully I took care of that. As I was saying, yeah, there's an echo. I don't know why this program always does this to me. But look at driving emergencies being trained in first aid. If you took Q's health class, there's a good chance that you did the first aid and the CPR. Now, first aid is going to probably be something that you would use at some point in your lifetime. But I'd almost guarantee that nobody here in driver's ed has or will use CPR. I've been trained many years, over 40 years in first aid, and I've never once had to use CPR. But I think if I had to use it, I think I know enough about compressions and where to put my hand, and if you have to cover the nose and how to blow into a mouth or blow over the nose now. All these things would help you. You wouldn't maybe be perfect at remembering every little thing that they taught you, but you would probably have enough training to help that person that's in need, whether it be first aid or CPR. And I think driving emergencies, if we take a look at it tonight, it's the same thing. I don't think you're going to memorize everything that we talk about, but I think hopefully this will jog your memory and go, okay, this is something that I should do now, or this is something that I forgot to do, and then, have it kick in and get right to dealing with it, like changing a tire. There's certain steps with changing a tire. And we're going to talk about that. The two things tonight that I really want you to write this down: changing a tire and jumping a car. I will tell you, at some point in your driving career, these two things will happen to you. It's happened many times. Actually, I just had to change a tire 2 weeks ago. Not in the driver's ed car, but on a personal vehicle. You're going to have to change a tire. And you could always call someone to come to your aid to help you, but it could be hours before they get to you. So it's just wise for you to understand the basic principles of changing a tire. So with driving emergencies, I want you to underline or put in your notes is think before you act. Because a lot of these driving emergencies, you're going to be moving. All right? And the other thing that I want you to realize when it comes to driving emergencies, really they can be broken down into two categories. The sudden, unexplained emergency, no warning at all. Okay, that'd be your first one, like a blowout. For whatever reason, one of your tires just totally blew out. You didn't hit anything on the road, you don't think, but for whatever reason, a tire just blew out. Could have been a nail that you ran over earlier, and now the tire is so low that you don't realize it, and then you go over a pothole, and then it just suddenly loses all its air. So those are the sudden, unexplained, just happens. Then the other type of emergency are the emergencies that have been giving you a warning. You have gauges and lights in your car. These are the emergencies that, shame on you. You should have seen the gauge. You should have seen the light. You've got 30 seconds to a minute to a couple minutes to have dealt with this issue, and you didn't do it. Okay, so the unexplained just happens, and then the forewarning. So always be looking at your dashboard. Always have a basic understanding of what the lights are trying to tell you. Remember, a red light means your emergency is something that needs to be dealt with immediately. If you have a yellow light on your dashboard, it's telling you that be aware of it. It is a warning. At some point, you should take a look at it. Okay, like a check engine light. So we're going to go through some of these pretty quick because we got to split up our time. We're going to split it up. Half the class will be on this, and then the other half will be on distractions, like texting and being on the phone and eating in the car and stuff like that. At some point, everybody's going to experience leaving the pavement. When you start out driving, it's just lack of skill. You just aren't able to have a sense of the position of your car in the lane, and you may take a turn or come around a bend of a corner, and the speed is too high, or you're not using the brake the right way, and you're going to go off the edge. So a couple of things that really aren't dealt with very well in the manual, so I want you to write this down. The first thing is that the wheel will pull. Okay, so when they say here, grip the steering wheel tightly, you're going to feel the car pull to the right because you've got your right side of your car off on the dirt or grass, and then you've got the left side on the pavement. It's going to pull you to the right. And the other thing I want you to remember for the final tomorrow, I want you to write down all driving emergencies should be a steering situation first. When things are going bad really quick in your car, your most important thing is to control your position and your speed in your lane while you look for a safe place to pull over. So it's not a brake pedal. It's not a gas pedal. Your first course of action when you have a driving emergency is your steering, keeping your car in your lane, getting control of it, and then looking for a place to pull over. So when you're running off the pavement, you got to get back on. So, and this is a typo. It says, third part here says, do not step on the gas pedal suddenly. It's supposed to be brake pedal suddenly. Step on the brake pedal easy. Okay, you don't want to do anything abrupt because that's going to affect what the car is reacting to. In this case, it's pulling to the right. Pull over to the side of the road. Get your composure. Think about what just happened. Use your directional. Check for traffic. And then move back out into the road. It's going to be natural. And if there's nobody around, if you've checked your mirror really quick, you can come back out onto the pavement without stopping and, regaining your composure if it's minor. But if you really were scared by this, I would take a moment to think about what happened and just, get it all together and then come back out onto the road. Now, I've listed 2 negative results. Now, this is extreme, and I've had students. One of the saddest things that happens in my profession is that I get you at a very young age, around 16, 17 years of age, and then I don't see you for years. I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this, 35 years. So it's always sad when I read the paper or listen to the news and I see a name of a student that I had in driver's ed and they had a bad situation in the car. I'm always thinking, did they really, understand it? Did they really learn it? How come this happened to them? They know better. This is something that we talked about. I've actually had 2 people that I had in driver's ed. One, she was a passenger. Her boyfriend was driving, but I recognized her name. Her boyfriend oversteered, meaning the car went off to the right side of the road. He tried to regain control, but he turned the wheel too much, and that's what we call oversteer. So he came back on to the pavement, but he shot across the center line, and he hit a car head on, and there were some serious injuries. Everybody lived, I believe, but I think both cars were totaled, and it was pretty traumatic. I think, a few people got hurt, but nobody died. Now, on the second case, where you totally lose control of your vehicle, you can't regain control, you're trying to get back onto the road, but because of the angle of the drop-off after the pavement, because of the speed that you're going, you just can't control the car, and the car hits something. And I had a student in class. I wasn't the driving instructor. I was just the classroom instructor at the time. And I knew her dad. I knew the situation, that she always wore her seatbelt. Every time that I would see her, and I saw her quite often, um, she had her seatbelt on. But this particular day, going too fast, not paying attention, went off the edge of the road with her sister and did not regain control of the vehicle, hit a tree. This was back when we didn't have airbags in the car, so this was back in the 90s, I think, um, or early 90s. And she died instantly. Her sister survived, but she did not. So this is pretty serious stuff. So it may not seem like a big deal, but leaving the pavement can be bad. I do have a little clip from an insurance company about running off the pavement. Let me show it to you.
Drifting onto the gravel shoulder of a highway can lead to a serious collision.
The uneven traction could cause you to lose control of your vehicle and send you into the ditch.
In this situation, don't make any quick movements. Making a quick change or abruptly moving back onto the pavement could send your vehicle into the path of oncoming traffic.
A head-on collision could occur because of overcorrecting. You should grip the steering wheel firmly and slowly ease off the gas, but do not brake. When you feel you have control of the vehicle, check your mirrors, signal, and ease back onto the highway when safe.
If the drop-off to the shoulder is steeper than usual, slow down even more and steer back onto the pavement at an even sharper angle.
By the way, this was a Canadian insurance company. If you looked in the background behind the reporter, you saw a speed limit that said 90. It's not 90 miles per hour. It was 90 kilometers. So I don't want you to think that, hey, have the speed limits changed in the United States? No, that's Canada. So that's... One of the common problems in a car that you're going to encounter, as I said earlier, was getting a flat tire. And a blowout happens when you have sudden loss of air from your tire. A lot of times when you run over a nail, something sharp in the road, it's going to just give you a slow leak. But when you really lose sudden air pressure, so you're going from 36 PSIs right down to like 18, your car is going to react quite severely to which tire blows out. So for the final, this is what I want you to write down. The tire to the front is always going to give you a worse situation. So you're always going to pull in the direction of the front tire that's blown. And I would tend to think that the left front tire would probably be the worst tire to blow, because then we're going into head-on traffic on a two-way roadway. Now, if we're on an interstate and we're in the middle lane, we're just going to get pulled either to the left lane or the right lane, and it's going to be at a glancing blow if we hit a car, not head-on, so it's not going to be quite as bad. And it doesn't matter which tire blows out of the back. It just gives you a fishtail situation. That's where your car swerves quite severely left and right. And to remember that in each direction, whether it be the front tires or the back tires, the faster you go, the more severe the pull or more severe the fishtail. So this is why it's so important to hold the steering wheel tight. And when it says straight, we're not talking about linear straight. We're talking about staying in your lane. So make sure you've got that steering situation under control. Let off on the gas pedal. When you feel you've got control of the vehicle, then brake, and then pull over to the side of the road looking for a safe place for the tire change that is going to be happening soon. So let me take a look at a tire blowout. Let's see. Oh, common causes. You don't check your tire on a regular basis. You have low tire pressure and you hit a pothole. It's enough to cause a blowout. Cuts, bulges in the tire may cause a blowout. Anything that's in the road that has sharp edges, so metal, glass. Okay, all situations that would lead to potholes. Tire pressure. I don't have the video for this, but I do hope that you know how to check your tire pressure. We talked about it's on the side of the tire or on the door jamb. When you open up the door, it's going to give you a tag that's going to give you the tire size and tire information of replacing your tire. It will also give you how many pounds per square inch that each tire should be inflated to. So don't overinflate, but also be careful if you drive a long period of time, like a couple of months without checking, that you may have low tire pressure. And when we're coming into bad weather, you want to make sure you've got the recommended pounds per square inch. Some of the tips for tire pressure: do it on a monthly basis. Tires lose roughly 1 pound per square inch per month, and also when it drops 10 degrees on outside temperature. So right now it's in the high 50s. If we see it get into the 30s tonight, in the morning you're going to see your tires go from like a 34 down to around a 32. So it will drop about 2 psi's. But as the temperature outside gets warmer, you're going to see that tire pressure increase. Remember, heat will increase tire pressure. Don't rely on the sensors that are on your tire stem. That's giving you a rough estimate. The best thing to do is to get a tire gauge and at an auto parts store and do it on the outside. It's more accurate. And I actually have one in the car. I think whoever's driving tomorrow, I'm going to pull it out and show it to you. And then I'll show you how you can check it on the inside. So if you're driving, just remind me if I happen to forget. We talked about knowing where to find this information. I think that's probably about all you need to know about tire pressure. But there's nothing that's going to help you keep your tires in good condition than to have good tire pressure. And it's going to help you drive more efficiently and effectively in bad weather. So here's an example of a bad tire. This tire is totally worn. I believe this is to the inside and not the outside. So it went right down to the steel belts. This would be a cause of a blowout. Now, one Saturday I was driving with a student and we came upon this in Dover. And I asked the student, could you pull over for a minute? I want to take out my cell phone and take a picture of this. If you know you have a flat tire, you do not want to be driving probably more than a half mile or a mile on that tire that's totally blown, because the more you go around and around with that tire, that flat tire, eventually the rim of your tire will cut up that tire and it will throw it off the rim. This is the side of the tire. This is what they were driving on. Once you lose the rubber part, it came off. This is the rim. That's where your tire is secured. You're just chewing it up and ripping it up. You can see a little bit of the bottom of a tire right at the bottom there. But if you're driving on this rim, you're not only going to have to get a new tire, but you're going to have to get a new rim. The edge around the corners here, they kind of get messed up. They get flattened, and they're not going to hold your tire. They can't put a new tire on that, so you're going to have to replace both. So let's talk about changing a tire. The first thing is safety, okay? And I'm going to show you a couple commercials that are kind of funny, and then we'll talk about how to change tires. Now, as silly as some of these videos or commercials were, do you know that real life is stranger than fiction? These were actual cases. These things did happen to people. Okay, now I think they took a little bit of liberty with a woman going off the edge of the overpass, but definitely I've heard of stories where people have gone underneath a vehicle and the vehicle's fallen on top of them. And I've heard of people working on the side of the road, changing their tire and not realizing that they're getting too close to the white edge line and getting hit by a car that is riding on the white line. So there is some truth to these. So I wanted to make sure that you understood that. And the other thing that most people don't realize, this was a English, I believe in England, commercial, because they spelt the word tire, Tyre. So it's a little bit different than what we have. It seems like other countries do a much better job with a lot of their commercials and information on driver safety. Okay, let's get out a piece of paper and make sure that you write down changing a tire. Now, probably most of your car manuals will have something along the same lines that we're going to talk about here, but it's important for you to have a basic understanding of steps to follow to change a tire. The first one is to look for a safe place to pull over. So if I had you in class, I would ask you, where would be a safe place to pull over? Some of the answers that we normally get would be a rest area, a parking lot, a gas station, someone's driveway, the breakdown lane. Never pull over to the left side on an interstate. Even though it looks like a breakdown, that is really not a breakdown area. That's mainly where the police hang out and kind of face traffic. So you shouldn't be over there. Driveway's good, as I said. Off-ramp would be good on a highway. I'd rather change a tire where people are going 30, 35 miles per hour. And off-ramps are usually pretty wide. So you're going to get a little bit of area. And people will see you for a distance too. Important, get everyone out of the vehicle. And as I told you, I changed the tire 2 weeks ago. And this is the one step that I forgot. I had my wife and my granddaughter with me. And we were jacking up the car, getting ready to loosen the lug nuts. It wasn't really up on the jack yet, but we were starting to loosen the lug nuts. And I still had them in the vehicle. And it's like, oh, you guys got to get out, because once it gets up on the jack, there's a chance that if you move around, then the vehicle is going to fall off the jack. We didn't have to use triangles because we were in a parking lot 30 feet off the highway. Set the parking brake, trig the wheel, take off the wheel cover. Some cars don't have wheel covers anymore, but they just have an access hole to the lug nuts. Put the jack on firm ground and jack up the tire about 2 to 3 inches. And one thing I don't have here, and I just mentioned it, is that you should always loosen the lug nuts while the vehicle is down. Okay, so you want to get, not to take the lug nuts off, but loosen enough that when you do jack up the car, the tire is going to still stay on the rim, but you're not going to have to pull and yank. And remember, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Now, when you take the lug nuts off, you should keep them in your pocket. Reason being is that in bad weather, rain or snow, they're going to be hard to handle, slippery, so keep them someplace where they're dry and warm. Lift off the tire, replace it with a spare. This is where we had a problem with the spare tire. We had to find it. It was underneath the truck. It wasn't inside the Jeep. It was underneath the Jeep. And it was quite a predicament getting it off the back portion of the Jeep. And it was tough to get off the old tire. They are heavy. They're very difficult. Okay, once you've put on the spare, what you want to do with the lug nuts is you want to go opposite. So write this down. When you put the lug nuts back on, you want to skip a hole. Never go clockwise or counterclockwise. It doesn't matter where you start, but wherever you start, skip a hole and then put it in a lug nut. Then skip another hole, put it in a lug nut. Skip another hole, put in a lug nut. You have 5. So make sure it ends up being like a star pattern. That's going to put the spare on squarely, and it's going to make things a lot easier when you tighten it up when you bring the vehicle down. So lower the vehicle down, tighten the lug nuts, and replace the hubcap. Now here's a expert, and this was a tire company that did a really good job of how to change the tires. So let me show you this.
Make sure your vehicle is parked in a safe location. A low-traffic parking lot or large paved pullout well off any busy street or road is ideal. Set the emergency brake first. If you have a manual transmission, put your car in first gear. If your vehicle is an automatic, just put it in park. Next, place wheel chocks or big rocks behind and in front of the tire opposite the one being changed. This will prevent vehicle movement and the jack from slipping while we work. Next, find your lug wrench, jack, and spare tire. These tools are often located in the trunk under the carpeting. Your vehicle's manual will indicate exactly where they are. This only applies if your vehicle has a hubcap. Many hubcaps just snap into place, but some are held on by the lug nuts. You can usually pry them off using something flat like a screwdriver. If your vehicle has covers over the lug nuts, be sure to remove them as well. Loosen the first lug nut by rotating the wrench counterclockwise just once without removing the lug nut entirely. Then, loosen the second nut directly opposite of the first one, and then the one opposite that, like a star-shaped pattern. If the lug nuts are tight, use your body weight to push down. Look in your owner's manual for where to position the jack. It's often under the frame near the tire with the flat, but not always the case. Our jack should be aligned with a thin seam line that runs under the vehicle. The factory jack has a notch cut out of it for a specific fit. Next, insert the handle and turn it clockwise to raise the car. Lower the jack if at any point your car seems unstable, and never ever get under a car that is only supported by a jack. Now, fully remove the lug nuts and place them in a secure location. Grasp the tire with two hands and pull it straight out. Then place it under the car. This is a precautionary measure just in case the jack slips. Remove any aftermarket accessories like hub rings at this point. The valve stem on the spare tire should be facing out. Then align it with the wheel studs and push it into the assembly. Tighten one lug nut by hand. Follow the same star pattern used to remove the lug nuts. Remove the flat tire from underneath the vehicle. Turn the jack handle counterclockwise and lower the vehicle. Once the vehicle is firmly grounded, fully tighten the lug nuts using your wrench, again in the star-shaped pattern. Remember to gather your tools back in place. Remove the wheel chucks and place your flat tire in the trunk. Lug nuts and lug bolts should be torqued to factory specs. You can also reach out to a local discount tire for proper torque recommendations for your vehicle. Finally, remember that spare tires are smaller and less capable than regular tires. They should only be used for limited short-distance driving. Visit your nearest discount tire.
Okay, one thing that they don't mention is don't ever leave the bad tire on the side of the road. For one, it's littering, and the other thing is you need that rim. So don't think it's a bad tire, I'm just going to leave it there. I know it's kind of heavy, it's going to be tough to put it back in the trunk or in the back seat, but you really do need that rim. If you leave it on the side of the road, you're going to have to buy another rim, and that can be pretty expensive. With skidding, it's a lot like what we talked about in winter driving where the back end is flying out. That's when your tires are not gripping the road any longer. Remember, skidding is really a steering problem. You're not on the road where you want to be. The car is kind of misbehaving. It's going left or right in the back or in the front. So remember, it's a steering problem. always think about trying to keep your car between your center line and your edge line. So always think about keeping your back end in front of your front end. So if the back end flies out to the right, you're going to steer to the right. If the back end flies out to the left on a rear skid, then you're going to steer to the left. And sometimes you're going to have an opposite direction skid, which means that if the car flies out too much to the right, then it's going to fly a little bit to the left, and then it's going to fly back to the right. There's usually 3 corrections on a skid. So you're going to go in one direction like left, then you're going to go right, and then you can go slightly to the left again. And by then, you should have control of the vehicle. As I mentioned when we talked about bad weather, I would highly recommend going to a parking lot in the wintertime when there's some ice or snow and get a feel for what is it going to be like if I lose control of my car. Can I regain control with my steering? Am I quick enough? Do I know how much of the wheel to turn, or am I making it worse? So it's kind of like experimenting, and it's going to help you when you do experience for the first time. You're going to have a slight idea of which way to turn the wheel. But remember, stay off the brake pedal and the gas pedal. Some of these things you really don't need to know. They're from the textbook, so a brake failure is important to know. You're probably going to have a light come on inside the vehicle because it's all computerized now. The one thing I want you to write down your notes is that realize that your parking brake, which is your emergency brake, will help slow you down. But you have to hold the release because you don't want the tires to lock up and skid. But remember, using your parking brake, or if you want to call it the emergency brake, will not bring you to a complete stop. It slows the car down, but you cannot stop it entirely. Shifting to a lower gear, in the driver's ed car it's a B, that will be helpful. If you're getting towards an intersection, you're afraid of cars that are going to now T-bone you, look for something to sideswipe. But the thing to remember about hitting anything that you hit, you're going to have to replace. So when you're going down the road, and let's say there's 2 cars on the road, there's a small Ford Escort, probably value of $5,000. It looks old, 10 years old. And right next to it is a spanking brand new Mercedes-Benz. That's probably worth $80,000. Hit the Ford. Don't hit the Mercedes because you're going to have to replace it. Now, if you have insurance, hopefully good insurance, they're going to take care of either one. But if you're paying out of pocket, you better start thinking. And by the way, when you think about things to hit and you think, well, I don't want to hit a car, I'll hit a fire hydrant or a telephone pole. Those things don't move. That's going to be a violent stop. And you're going to have to replace those. I knew of a friend that worked for the power company. He told me of a person in a logging company truck went off the edge of the road and hit a telephone pole with one of those transformers on the top. And the electric company, power company, had to come out on a holiday or a weekend. Anyways, he says it was time and a half. He said to replace that telephone pole, it was $20,000. That's a lot of money for a telephone pole. Okay, so be careful of what you hit. Use your horn and lights to warn people. Pull over the side of the road, call for help. AAA, once again, is the way to go. Any type of service facility will come out to help you, but you are going to have to either pay for it directly at the point of the day that it happens, or in the case if you have AAA, it's a membership and you can use it all year long. So I kind of like knowing I've got it all year long rather than just calling a tow truck if I have a breakdown. Some of these things, you got to remember that when you're involved in a crash, you always want to minimize the severity. So hitting the brakes as hard as you can, do a lot with positioning your car where you can try to have it hit. You can't always control where you're going to get hit because I know the other driver coming towards you, left, right, front, or back, has a lot to say in that. But if you do have some options of moving your vehicle, trying to lessen where the severity of the crash is going to take place, that is probably a smart thing to do. I'm going to skip over a lot of these. Overheating, that's the temperature gauge. So just kind of look at your gauge or light. It's warning you of something. Just don't drive on a engine that's overheating, because you are going to ruin the engine. And try not to loosen the radiator cap to put any type of fluid in, because you could burn yourself from the steam that's coming up from an overheated engine. Vehicle going in water, it doesn't happen that often. It will usually float. And this is from the textbook. I'm going to skip over a lot of this stuff. Okay, going off a bridge. Here's a car that would be, somewhat submerged in water and trying to get out. That's important. Headlight failure could be a bulb. It could be a fuse. So go to the owner's manual. Now, when they say dimmer switch, what they're talking about is high beam. So you want to have enough light to get you off the side of the road. Stuck gas pedal. This is a good one. Keep your eyes focused on the road. Try to put the car in neutral, because if the car goes to neutral, you can use the brake. Okay, when the gas pedal sticks, sometimes it's linkage in the engine, and a lot of times you're going to see that it could be something underneath the pedal. But try to cut the engine. Try to take the acceleration away. Toyota had a real bad problem with stuck gas pedals probably about 10 years ago. Cars were accelerating and people, didn't know to go to neutral, and they were trying to brake and the car was still moving. By the way, a gas pedal will always win over a brake pedal. So if I was using my instructor brake and hitting it as hard as I could, and you hit the gas pedal as hard as you could, the car is still going to move forward. So when the accelerator is sticking and you're using the brake, it's counterintuitive. So going to neutral will take the acceleration away. So let's take a look at this clip-on stuck gas pedal.
Although it is a rare occurrence, your Toyota may experience a sticky accelerator pedal. You should pay attention to the operation of your accelerator pedal. If the accelerator is harder to depress than normal or slower to return, it may be a precursor to a stuck pedal. These vehicles should be parked and a dealer immediately notified. Okay, what should you do if your accelerator pedal sticks? Although it is a rare occurrence, we thought you should know what steps you should take in the unlikely event that it did occur. If your pedal sticks and won't return to its original position when you take your foot off of it, step on the brake with both feet using firm and steady pressure. Don't pump the brake pedal, as it will deplete the effectiveness of the brakes. Then simply shift into neutral, that's N for neutral, and firmly apply the brakes to make a controlled stop on the side of the road. If your Toyota's transmission has a notched shift gate and you're driving in sport mode, step on the brake with both feet using firm and steady pressure. Simply nudge the shifter to the right into drive, D, then forward into neutral, N, and firmly apply the brakes to make a controlled stop on the side of the road in a safe area and shut off the engine. Drivers who cannot put the vehicle into neutral should turn the engine off. This will not cause a loss of steering or braking control, but the power assist to these systems will be lost. If the vehicle has an engine start-stop button, firmly push the button down for at least 3 seconds to turn off the engine. Do not tap the start-stop button. If the vehicle has a conventional key ignition, turn the key to the accessory position, or ACC, to turn off the engine. But do not remove the key from the ignition, as this will lock the steering wheel. If you experience any issues with your accelerator pedal, please contact your dealer without delay. If you are not experiencing any issues with your pedal, Toyota is confident that your vehicle is safe to drive. Thank you.
So that kind of gives you a step-by-step procedure to take with stuck gas pedal. Power steering, that's usually a computer problem, or it could be power steering fluid. that's not circulating through. Steering will take place, but it will be more difficult. Pull over to the side of the road, restart the vehicle, see if the computer system, just like on your computer, sometimes if you get that death wheel, sometimes by restarting and starting again, it kind of solves the problem. So you may want to do something like that and see if it happens. If not, call AAA, call for a tow truck, call for help. Hood flies up. This is basically when the latch, someone checked the oil or did something to the engine and didn't realize that the safety latch didn't take place. So look underneath where there's a gap, or look out the window. Some of these we're not going to cover. Stopping on a railroad, that's basically when we covered that, about getting out, going at a 45 degree. Don't stay in the car. Windshield wiper failure is usually a wiper motor. We're not talking about the rubber on the wiper blade not effectively cleaning the windshield. We're talking that the whole arm is not working. So you want to stick your head out to guide you off the road. But if it is an insert, a windshield wiper insert problem, the rubber blade, carry an extra pair in your car. So if you do have an incident where it's not cleaning properly, just put the new pair on. You're going to need some of these things anyway, so it's almost like paper towels. It's always good to have the next roll ready. And then when you're using your spare, next time you go to the store, buy another pair and just put it in the trunk. Let's talk about a disabled vehicle. You do need to know this for the final. Anytime that your car breaks down, it should be seen for a distance of 200 feet. Crashes happen when people come around a corner over a hill and they can't deal with what they see in the road. So if there's an incident where you are on the roadway, push it off the road if you can and put it someplace where people can see your vehicle for a long distance, at least 200 feet. So don't park on a hill or a curve. Use any type of warnings, triangles, emergency lights, parking lights. If you don't have any electrical power, tie a white cloth, red in the wintertime. This alerts people that you need help. Okay, the universal symbol is a cloth tied to the door handle, or back in the day, the antenna. So make sure people know you want someone to pull over. Try not to walk, especially in bad weather. You never know when you're going to get hit if you have to walk a long distance, especially on a road that you're not familiar with. And rear flares and reflectors should be placed 200 feet behind and in front of the vehicle to let cars have a due warning of getting away from where you're at. Let's talk about jump starting a car. What I want you to write down, if you leave your headlights on or the radio on or something for a long period of time, you're going to drain the battery. So every car has a battery, and just like you would with a battery that you've seen that goes in a flashlight, there's a positive post and a negative post to a battery. So what you need to do is to hook your battery up to a battery that is functional, and you have to use something called jumper cables, and you're going to always put the positive end to the positive end and negative end to negative end. So it's really important that you read the owner's manual and have a basic understanding of how to jump start a car, because it will probably happen. Now, this happened probably during the first part of the pandemic back in April. We were all locked at home, and my son was home from college, and he left the headlight on our pickup truck, and the battery was dead. So what are you going to do when you don't have anything to do during the pandemic? Well, might as well make a driver's ed video. So my son and I just got a drone in the mail, and I used the drone for the parallel parking video that I did. But this is the first video that I did with the drone. So my son and I went out and we jump started the truck. So this is the video that we did for how to jump a car. So you kind of get the idea of the simple steps, positive to positive, negative to negative. Don't get your colors mixed up. So red is positive, black is negative. It doesn't take that long. And as you saw in the video, let the car run for about 10 minutes to 15 minutes to really get a lot of juice back in the bad battery, and you're going to be all set. If you still have any questions about whether the battery is going to hold a charge, take it to any one of these auto body places, and they'll test your battery. They'll let you know whether your battery is able to hold a charge and whether you're going to have to replace a battery. So just like you replace the batteries in your flashlight, you're going to have to replace a battery in a car at some point. I mean, it stays good probably for 3 to 5 years. The more driving that you do, probably it has more wear and tear on the battery. Vehicle on fire, you probably heard the adage, where there's smoke, there will be fire. So if you smell something a little fishy, something burning, get out of the car, pull over to the side of the road, turn off the engine, get everyone out of the vehicle. I don't like the last part here, the blanket fire extinguisher. If your car's on fire, just let it go. Your insurance company's going to replace it. But car fires do happen. I don't have the video, but I had a video of a car catching fire. Here it is right here, out in California, back in 2007. I have seen it around here. It's not that common, but it's not that uncommon either. So if you smell smoke, just get away from the vehicle. So that's just kind of touching on driving emergencies. Let's pop right into the next section that we have to kind of get through, and that is texting and driving, which I think is probably more important than driving emergencies, because this is something that you're going to be facing with once you get your license, because you always carry your phone with you. And by far, back when I first started teaching driver's ed, it was speed and alcohol were the two hot topics. Teach kids about controlling their speed, going the speed limit. Don't race. Don't fool around with speed in a car, and make sure that they understand the consequences and penalties of drinking and drugging and driving. And we've got to bring this number down. Then all of a sudden, things got way out of control with fatalities for young people in cars. And it wasn't speed and alcohol. It was texting and driving. And there's a lot of statistics, and I'm not going to have enough time to go through all of them. But I do want to highlight on a few things. So I want to make sure that you take a couple good notes. Any activity that takes your attention away from driving is distracted driving. Now, we always think it's texting or talking on the phone, but it could be checking Instagram, Facebook. It could be the radio. It could be eating. It could be doing your makeup. I had a coworker that used to shave. He used to have electric shaver. Oh, Echo, thanks. Oh, yeah. Every time I switch over to a new PowerPoint, I can't believe it. All right. Hopefully it's taken care of. The data is about 5 years old, but roughly 3,500 people are killed, and close to 400,000 are injured from distracted driving. So this is what I want you to write down. Over on the right side where it says your mind. Your mind is being broken into different compartments. We have different parts of our brain that's able to help us with different functioning activities that we have. So the 5 things that are going to, or the 4 things that are going to take place with a distraction is in your mind is manually doing something, visually taking care of something, cognitive and auditory. Now we may have a combination. It could be manual and auditory, or it could be visual and cognitive. It just doesn't have to be one thing going on to be distracted. A lot of times it's going to be, like we say, multitasking. So cognitive is distraction of thought and concentration. So this would be talking on the phone and your mom's asking you, what did you do with the letter from the summer camp? and you're thinking, okay, summer camp, that's a ways away, but where did I put it? Did I put it in my room? Did I put it in the office? And you're thinking, talking to your mom while you're driving about where you put it. You're not thinking about a light that's changing or brake lights that are happening in front of you. Auditory would be like listening to music really loud. My kids will tell you this, that if we're on vacation and I'm driving and I'm kind of confused about listening to the GPS, I need the music down low. I don't want to hear the person tell me, take your next exit on the left, and hearing, whatever we're listening to at high decibels. So turn the music down. I got to hear what GPS is saying. So you get distracted by auditory. Visual would be using your eyes, would be reading a text. And of course, manual would be using your hands and responding or typing on your phone a number. From top to bottom, the worst by far is texting, because it's not only thinking about what you're writing, but you're manually doing it. Talking on the phone is 2. Changing or playing music, eating, grooming, and talking to passengers. This is why the law only allows one non-relative for the first 6 months, because we don't think that you'll be able to handle having multiple people in the car. It just gets to be a problem. Let me show you a video that Q gave me. I believe it is from Ireland or Wales, and it's about some girls that are texting their friends, and I think it's about a boy. But watch the video, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about it once it's done.
Hi, Dave. My mate Jules fancies you. Huh? It's not even funny now. Let me just get his number.
Ring an ambulance! Ring an ambulance! Stay still! I can't open the door. I've rung an ambulance.
We've got other people on the route to help, okay?
Please, look straight at me for a second.
3 vehicles have been involved.
Right.
2 people in the vehicle there. I can't get any response out of them whatsoever.
The ones in the front or the ones in the back?
Mommy, Daddy, wake up! Mommy, Daddy, wake up!
Right, I just can't get any response whatsoever.
I want Mommy and Daddy to wake up.
Any pain in your neck at all? You're nice and still for me. Alright, keep looking at me. Alright. Cassie, can you hear me? What's your friend's name in the back? What's it? Jules, is it? Nice and still there for me.
Okay, let's kind of unpack this video because I really think it touches upon a lot of things that we've covered in driver's ed over the last couple weeks. First of all, do you think everybody in that car where the girls were, do you think that they were in their seatbelt? I don't think so. Now, don't you think that at least one of the three should be looking at the road? Probably the driver. Okay, so one, the driver wasn't taking the task at hand seriously. Okay, if you want to respond, have the passengers read it and text. And the other thing that we're going to talk about is that most of the text messages that you receive or send are things that can wait. Now, I don't know about how old your parents are, so I'm going to only talk about myself. It's a whole new different ball game when it talks about distraction now compared to what it was like when your parents were in high school or when I was in high school. There was no such thing as cell phones. Not even, forget about smartphones. We didn't even have phones. If you wanted to call a friend, you're out driving, you'd have to go home or look for a payphone. So there were no distractions like that when your parents were growing up or when I was growing up. Back to the video. How many people do you think, we talked about injuries and being responsible, that one crash, how much do you think that one crash cost? 100,000? 200,000? We've had debates over the many classes that I've been teaching using this video. Most classes, we believe there are close to 7 people that probably passed away in that one crash. When you're paying for funeral cost, medical cost, pain and suffering, that's got to be $500,000 to $1 million. Just the ride in the helicopter, by the way. I had someone tell me that if a helicopter comes to a scene and transports you to a trauma center rather than going in an ambulance, you're looking between like 60, 80, 90,000 just for the trip, just for the helicopter ride. That's insane. The other thing we learned in driver's ed, hopefully, when you have airbags in your car, once you have a crash and they get deployed, are there another second or secondary airbag behind that will come in if you get hit again? No. Airbags only deploy once. You only get to use them once. That car got hit twice. The second crash probably did more damage than the first. The other thing how about the people that get hit? They couldn't see that the car was crossing the center line. They didn't honk the horn, get out of the way. When you're driving, you've got to be defensive. You've got to be looking out for the mistakes of other people out on the roadway, and you've got to have a plan of action. Steer out of their way, beep your horn, flash your lights, especially the evening time. Something like this should not have happened. But time and time again, we see in the paper where young kids are texting and driving. I think every single one of you that I've driven with, we have seen somebody out on the road during our hour drive that was on their phone. Now, sometimes I verbalize it and I point it out to you. Other times I'm just looking in my mirror, I look straight ahead and I see it. It's just a common occurrence. People are numb to it now. They do not care because they think that they will not get stopped, they won't get a ticket, or they're not going to be that one driver that makes a mistake and gets involved in a crash. But it will catch up with you. I'm telling you, it will catch up with you. You will have some type of situation driving because you're being distracted with your phone. Every state now has enacted measures to ban or curb the use of phones. So this is an old map. This is probably 5 years old, but every state now has some type of law around texting and driving. So don't think that when you go to another state, oh, this state must not be covered. It's just a New Hampshire thing. No, it's in every single state. Now, I don't have this video, but I do want you to write down, and I want you to write down and know this for the final, that your behavior behind the wheel while you're looking at your phone, reading it or texting, you look like a drunk driver. Your behavior behind the wheel mimics. A lot of people will swear that person's a drunk driver. In reality, they're just on their phone. So don't be surprised you get pulled over and they think that you're drunk, and they'll ask you questions. Have you had anything to drink? Well, they don't smell the alcohol. Then the next thing is, have you been on your phone? And remember, in a crash, you can lie. No, I'm not on my phone. I wasn't on my phone. No, I just was, thinking about, what I was going to have for dinner tonight, and I wasn't paying attention. That's why I was 5-10 miles below the speed limit and over the white line. But if you get involved in a crash, they can subpoena your phone records. They're going to know exactly where you were at what time on your phone. So you think, oh, they'll never know the reason why I hit the pedestrian is because I was on my phone? You're going to get away with it? No, you're not. They're going to subpoena your phone records. On serious crashes, they can do that. With technology, we know exactly where you were and who you were on the phone with. So it doesn't take much. Now, just because you think that you're talented, that you can actually look at your phone really quick and then, text something and then look at the road and text again and go back and forth. Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it. This is one of the strangest videos that I have ever found dealing with texting and driving. Watch this.
Ja.
Now, of course, this is in another country. This is kind of like lane splitting. He's on his phone.
He's texting. That's what they're going to say.
What would happen if the car in front hit the brakes? What would happen if he hit a pothole?
He's just chilling.
Now, yeah, he's talented. But that's crazy.
That's
talking
crazy,
on your
dude.
phone while you're riding your motorcycle. Totally crazy. Okay, he should have pulled over the side of the road. Okay, a couple things I want you to write down. Number one, first bullet. The number one problem with teen fatalities is distracted driving. It's the number one killer of teens. More than suicide, more than addiction, overdoses, distracted driving. More people, young people are dying. The other thing I want you to write down, the average person will look away from their phone while they're driving for 5 seconds. Isn't that crazy? Think about this. Next time you're out driving with your parents, ask your parents, hey, Mom, count to 5. I'm going to close my eyes. I want to see what happens when I'm driving. Your mother's going to think you're crazy. Why would you close your eyes for 5 seconds and then open them up and see where you are on the road? Sounds like a sick game, but that's what people do when they're driving. They look down at their phone and up to close to 5 seconds, then they're looking back up again. At speeds of 55, they're saying that you're going close to a football field, 360 feet. That's insane. And 34% of teens who are surveyed who are driving while distracted say that they're used to multitasking, saying that it's not that big of a deal. I could do it. I'm still a pretty decent driver. Here's 6 out of 10 teen crashes involve driver distraction. So this was done by AAA. So what's happening? Talking to passengers is way up high. Being on the cell phone is 12%. 10% is looking at something in the vehicle like the radio. Looking at something outside the vehicle is 9%. Singing to music, 8%. Grooming, 6%. Getting something that's loose in the car accounts for around 6%. Now, I want you to take a look at this graph because I think it's pretty telling. And I think this is nationally. In 2015, close to 3,500, and then a little bit less than 2016 deaths. Guess what happened in 2017? See, if we were in class, we could discuss this, and I don't want to wait to see what your response is. But in 2017, let's do the first question. Look at 2014, and then look at 2015, 2016. Let's see if someone can figure out. And I'll have you put a comment in the text message or in the YouTube comments. Why do you think it went from 2014 to under 3,000 to close to 3,500? Why was there an increase of like 500 deaths in 2015, 2016? Let's see how many people can come up with it. And then also try to figure out what happened in 2017. And I'm going to show you a video in a minute, and then we'll come back, we'll talk about it. Leaving the road is way up high, close to 90%. So you're drifting usually off to the right, although it could go off to the left. Rear end is where you're texting while people in front of you are braking. At an angle would be when you're driving and you're hitting parked cars. And then total loss of control is around 44%. So this is what we're finding for percentages. So by far, leaving the road is way, way up high. So let me show you the video, and then we'll talk about why those numbers are so high.
My name is Grant Hendricks. I'm a trooper with the Missouri State Highway Patrol. I'm at the site of Mariah West's accident. Mariah's vehicle traveled across this median and ended in striking the bridge that you can see behind me.
When I got to the scene, her face was disfigured from sliding down the roadway. It's funny, the first thing I noticed about her was her shoes. Lying in the roadway in a large pool of blood, I noticed her shoes, and I thought, this is a young girl. That's the first thing I thought when I saw this. And at that point is when I noticed her cap and gown was still in her car. She was going to graduate the next day. It was just a really horrific scene. All because of a senseless text message. It's just sad. Sorry, it's just sad.
Ashley would text hundreds of messages every day. That was the way we kept in touch. We would definitely text more than we talked.
Mariah was a multitasker extraordinaire.
She could text better than anyone I know. She could be having one conversation with me, completely focused, while having a text conversation with somebody else.
When you do something 7,000 times a month, you tend to learn where those 26 letters are.
We would be at school, at home, movies, bowling, driving.
Not even looking at her phone.
Just simple,
insignificant,
useless, whatever it may be.
About anything and everything.
Just a way to pass the time.
It didn't matter where we were constantly texting. This is my sister. She was looking at my message that I had just sent her. When she looked up, she had clipped the median on the left-hand side of the road. Her truck flipped, and as it was flipping, she was actually ejected through the driver's side door, and she landed in the ditch about 300 feet from her truck. People will tell you over and over again, it's not your fault. But knowing that you were the person that she was talking to when she was killed. Just knowing, having a highway patrol officer write in a report that a text message sent at 12:05 is the reason that she is dead is not something that will ever go away. If I could talk to her one last time, I would just say, I'm sorry. This is her cell phone that she used in the accident. 4 little letters. That's what killed her.
You never really think about it, but people associate drinking and driving as a dangerous thing. Your vision's impaired, your judgment's impaired. But if you look at texting and driving, your vision's not even there. You're not even looking at the road. If someone were to ask me to drive down the road and close your eyes for 5 seconds or 6 seconds, I would never even attempt that. But then if someone asks, read this text message and respond to that in about the same length of time, well, that would be no problem. I'd done that numerous times in the past before this accident. I was on my way home. I had my girlfriend in the car, and I'm just reading a text message, responding. I was looking up every couple seconds or so, like I always did. And I just hear a loud scream next to me, and the next second I look up and I see a bicyclist crashing the windshield. When I got out of the car, he didn't have a pulse, he wasn't breathing. He wasn't alive. There are no words to describe the level of grief, the level of depression and self-hatred I was going through. My first year of college, I just remember one girl recognizing me and saying, "Oh, I remember hearing about you. You're that guy who hit the bicyclist because you were texting and driving." That was actually the day before I ended up going to the hospital for emotional problems. I sent one stupid, meaningless text, LOL, and killed the man.
People don't realize it could just take 3 seconds. I was going to the movies and the car just went directly into a tree and it was a direct collision. I was the passenger. I collided with the tree on my right temple and I was declared dead on the scene 3 times. I used to be able to drive. I used to be able to go for walks. I used to be able to run around town by myself. I used to have a job. I was normal. And all this, I cannot do anymore because they had the text. This is the text message that changed my life forever.
The day before her graduation, my daughter drove to go meet a boy, and she never made it. Today, she would have been 19 years old, exactly.
Mariah never wanted a minute to go by that she wasn't doing something. She wanted to do everything all at one time with friends and family and just having a good time. That's what she loved.
Friends would tell me from school that, you know, the best part of the day at school was Mariah coming down the hall because she'd stop to give everyone a hug. Okay, guys, in honor of Mariah. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mariah.
She had met a guy who played baseball, and one evening she just spontaneously got in her car and said, "Hey, I'm gonna come watch his game." He was texting her to tell her directions of where she needed to go.
And I guess she just looked away for too long. Where are you at, you know? Like that was it.
One of her friends had no idea that she had been in an accident, so he kept texting. We ended up having to send him a text back to say, please stop. She's in critical condition in the hospital, and we don't know if she'll even make it.
She always worked her magic, you know, and still to this day, without her being here, she's so much still a part of our lives every day.
She was our sunshine. She really was. She was.
It's a simple text message. Where are you at? 3 simple words.
She paid the ultimate price for her actions. I've had to do this more than once. Mariah's not the only victim that I've dealt with. And it never gets any easier. And it won't get any easier. What is worth losing your life over? That text message?
Okay, a pretty sad recount of what happens in a texting and driving situation. Real lives shattered by one moment of carelessness behind the wheel. And they're all young people. Okay, notice it wasn't geared around people that are in their 40s and 50s. And I'm not saying that 40s, 50s, 60-year-old people don't text and drive. But it definitely is a younger person's problem, more so. Probably because of the inexperience behind the wheel and inexperience texting and just texting while driving. If I had you in class, I'd have you take out your phone, read your last text. And the question, what the picture's trying to say is, you think about it. Do you want this to happen? Put your phone away. Is it really that important? Of course not. I thought this was a pretty sad story, too. Here's a young girl that was texting and driving, and she was involved in a serious car crash. And she lived. Thank goodness she lived. But this article goes on to say a year to the day of her first texting and driving crash, she had another one. And this one, she didn't make it. She became a fatality. You would have thought she almost lost her life during her first crash. Why wouldn't you change your behavior? I can't imagine her parents, a year to the day, living through this same trauma. So what can you do? Turn off your phone before driving. Put it someplace where you can't reach it. Have a playlist when it comes to music. Organize your time better so you don't have to be texting people to say that you're late. Pull over to do these things. And lastly, just make it an effort that you're going to say, I will not text and drive. I'll do it before I get the car on. I'll wait till I get to a place where I can pull over to a parking lot and do it, but you're not going to do it while you're in drive. While the car is moving, and by the way, that is illegal. You can't even be off to the side of the road. You have to be in a parking lot or a driveway. Any portion of the road makes it illegal. This is the New Hampshire law. Let me get right to it. Here's the New Hampshire law, and you're basically the last bullet. Teen drivers under the age of 18 will not be allowed to use any electronic device, handheld or not, except to report an emergency. Your first offense is going to be a $100 fine. Your second offense, $250. Your third or subsequent offense within 2 years, it gets to be $500. And remember, from state to state, we have laws like this, and it's worse in some states. So don't think it's going to be the same. Adults, a little bit different. They can use Bluetooth, but even adults can't be fooling around with GPS and stuff like that. So that's what we have in New Hampshire. That basically covers what we wanted to do for tonight. Let's talk about the final tomorrow. You will tune in at 7:30. I will have a link to our remote Facebook page to the final. You have to tune in to get instructions. We'll talk about what to do if you do not pass. I'll have the password at the beginning of class, and then I'm going to get off. I'll switch off the camera, and then I'll go on my phone. If people have questions, they can just text me. So try to do the test on your computer or iPad. Don't do it on your phone. That'd be the best way to do it. Remember, I need your textbooks. Our last homework is a review. Like a lot of people say, well, aren't we going to review stuff that we've gone over? I have made a video that you can do now for this last half hour. You can tune in on YouTube tomorrow. It's on the YouTube channel that I have here. It's probably down below, deep where I first started to teach these classes. But I'll make a link on the remote Facebook page, and I'll send a link out to those of you that don't have it. So you can either do it tonight, do it tomorrow. I will tell you, if you do the review questions, because in the manual, if you looked at the very back, let me show you. 11 questions. Can you imagine? You've been here for 5 weeks, and they only give you 11 questions as sample questions for your state test. That is lousy. That is not acceptable. That is not very good. This is why I've had the questions that I've been asking you to answer, so you kind of get in the habit of seeing multiple choices and answering things. So I'm going to put the link up on the remote Facebook page as soon as we're done in the next minute or two. And then we'll come back tomorrow and we'll do the final. So I wanted to say study hard. I think this has been a relatively good class. People have done their work. Make sure that your homework is in, because you won't get your certificate. I'll let you do the final, but I want your homework. That's part of your grade. That's part of what I've got to show the state that you've done your work. So try to get that stuff into me. If you got 1 or 2 missing, I'm not going to, break you over the head with that. But I want a good, portion of what we had as requirements, handouts and stuff done. So take your time on the test tomorrow night, multiple choice. I think you're all going to do well. So we'll see you again tomorrow night at 7:30. Let's see how well you do on that test. So have a good night, and we'll see some of you tomorrow for driving. We are done. No more content. Okay. Have a good night.